the last video, I completed that nose and wing surgery, which, you know, more or less gets me to step one for all intents and purposes. So now I'm getting into cutting out the pieces and separating them and so forth. And I was looking at the kit instructions, and I'm looking through, and I'm like seeing, you know, some options and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back and look at those old mini crafts. So I actually printed them out, put them up on the wall, and I'm glad that I did, because on these instructions, you know, it says cut a hole in there to put this parts C3 and C4 on. And the part numbers are the same. Again, it's the same kit. But here they're saying, and I didn't even know they were called this, but they're empty shell ejection chute parts are not on the Blue Angels. Obviously, they wouldn't be ejecting shells as a demonstration plane. So you don't cut that hole. Good catch. And while it calls it out on here for this Blue Angels plane, you know, the special instructions that come with this kit, all they say is Blue Angels version does not have pylons, missiles, or tanks. This is a little more specific, so I'm really glad I, you know, popped these out. So just, you know, to point out all the work Joe's going to have to do that I won't. This is all the parts listed in, you know, from that old kit that you're not going to use, that I'm not going to use. Not to mention I'm doing wheels up. So to offset that, I am going to build those stands. I'm going to actually build two of them, because I have added to the Blue Angel stash with a Super Hornet, as well as the decals that go with it. And so, you know, it won't be my next build. It'll be somewhere down the line. But while I'm building the stand for that, I might as well build the stand for the Hornet as well. And then I also thought the other thing I would do is I went through these decals and put them out on top. These are the ones for the F4 Phantom that I have to fix. So I have those sets. So when I do the decals on mine, I'll do the decals on this as well and fix that. So that somewhere down the line, I'll have the complete set with, you know, filling in what's missing right there, and then completing it with another one there. And I'm going to have to scrunch all this down. I already brought the C54 down to make room for the Tiger. I'm also thinking about what silvers I want to use. And, you know, I did those Thunderbirds with the Alclads. I may go Alclad. I think the Molotov or Spastics is going to be almost too shiny. I don't think it should necessarily be chrome. It should be more metallic, I think. So still thinking about what I'm going to do here. So from this point forward, I basically just followed the Blue Angel specific instructions. So I started with filling in the connection points for any ordnance on the wings, and then proceeded to work on those intakes. So with the intakes on the side there, I'm kind of going back to step one, if you will. Now I've painted the interior parts gray, and you know, I tried to mask off the mating surfaces there. So there's one masked and this one unmasked, and then, you know, same thing on the tub. And then the other thing is, again, I did all the others with a pilot, but the kit does not include one. So I'm going to have to pick one out. If you saw my UH2C build, you may recall I took the heads off these guys to put on that. Now I have these heads, and you can see he's wearing goggles and headgear. I think these came from an A6 Intruder, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that body with that head is going to work. And then I would just have to take this one like weird hose on the side off of there. Yeah, something along those lines. Now I'll have to adjust that hose. Overall, yeah, I think that's going to work. Because this is my reference, and you can see how he's kind of sitting forward. And the height of his head is compared to that seat. Maybe I'll bring him down a little bit, but overall, yeah, I think that's going to work. Start filling in the landing gear bays and put these covers over them. So I've got all those cut out, and now I'm starting to fit those in there. Basically what I'm going to do is use some spare sprue to build that up so that it can just sit on there and be flush. And then all I have to do is touch some glue to it and then come back with putty later. It's intended to be built with the landing gear down, and building it with the landing gear up and closing those landing gear bays is often more difficult than just building it the way it's supposed to be. So on my references here, if I zoom in, you can kind of see the landing gear there. So, you know, it is somewhat visible, but I've got some work to do to make that look halfway decent. I don't think that piece fit all that well to begin with. You know, it came out a little bit better on this side than it did on that side, and this was after a lot of fitting and going back and forth and sanding, and then I can come back and work with some putty and the lighter files. I guess from here it's not all that bad, but yeah, it's gonna take some work. And then once I get both sides kind of where I want them, then I can finally bring them together. And the other thing I'm gonna start working on is these stands. And I was going through my building material stash and in the sheet styrene, and sure enough, this was in one of the sleeves. And if you look there, that is, you know, I probably cut one of those out of there, but that fits that template. So, so I'm going to use this one as my template to then, you know, scribe the other ones. So I got some more tube that will make that, you know, that piece that goes up there. And then I got some tube that'll go up into there. So that's one of the things I have to do while I have the fuselage open, is determine. And if you look, what I did on most of them is I tried to figure out where the decals are going to go and then kind of stay away from them. And then determining, you know, where in the fuselage that's going to go. And pretty much it's probably going to be based off these instructions in the bottom, like right there. Very similar to the other one, I'm sure. What I learned the second time through with the Thunderbirds was to kind of determine where it should go in here and make sure I reinforce inside there before I close it up. Okay, so I drilled that hole in there and then cut that inner tube, so to speak, the right height. It's just wedged in there right now. And you can see on that other side. So now I'm gonna, if I could do this with one hand, put these two together, and yeah, it looks good. I'm gonna put that acrylic rod in there and then try to get it straight. So I'm gonna try to get that perpendicular now because I want it slightly like raised, you know, like taking off. Okay, yeah, I think like that. So now what I'll do is set this down very carefully. That should get glued right there, which is what I'm gonna do. Okay, I've hit it with the ultra thin, just touched it, you know, top and bottom. I'm gonna let that, again, solidify overnight because I'm kind of waiting for these things to fully set up. I'll, you know, hit that there with probably some super glue to hold it to the other side when I bring the halves together. So actually I just went and grabbed this one from the Thunderstreak. I did the Thunderbirds after I did the Blue Angels, and I went with a thicker one. So this is basically what I'm mimicking, and that will fit right in there. And so as long as I get this angle right later on, that should all sit appropriately. So I first put down the Mr. Surfacer, painted this pilot, and opened that Blue Angels blue for the first time in 20 years, and it was perfect. So I'm pretty happy about that. Just put a very little bit of thinner in there and it worked fine. And so then on the helmet, I'll come back with the Blue Angels yellow and touch that helmet. I'm gonna mask goggles first, the black on the goggles, and then come back with the yellow, and then probably hand paint the rest of the details. So here's my progress on the pilot. You can see his head there with the Blue Angels yellow on the helmet. So now I have to weather that, wait till that fully dries, then do some panel line. I'm going to do light panel line wash on the figure, and he's just dry fit in there right now. And you can see I drilled a hole in him and then put that control stick through his legs and then touching his hand. And then once the head is fully dry and everything's fully dry, then I'll put the head on and position that in there and then glue everything in place. But so far it's looking pretty good. All right, it's the next morning, and yeah, I just slid that in there, so that's how that's gonna work. Then I gotta work on closing those front landing gear doors. I wonder if I should address that. Yeah, I think I'll get those ready now. So we've got the pilot and the seat glued to the one side of the fuselage. So I'm gonna let that all dry and solidify. I'm working on these front landing gear doors now, and basically what I'm doing is trying to build that up inside there with the styrene panel scraps, and then rest that on top there. All right, that's all glued together. Yeah, I think I got a pretty nice fit on that. So let all that dry. So now I will do the same thing on this door that I did on that one, and then hopefully, finally, I can bring these together. Okay, here's the other side. I think that'll do it. I might have to sand that at the, on this outer edge here, but that'll be okay. Okay, so bringing those together, and yeah, I'm going to have to sand that center connection point of those doors, but that's fine. I'd rather have to sand down to it than not. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. All right, there we go. I hit it with the glue from the inside with the brush and kind of went from the inside and dabbed it in there and then taped it around the outside. So I think everything lines up pretty nice. The lines going across line up nice. So now it's a lot of scraping and sanding, not necessarily sanding, but buffing, so to speak. I'm still worried about how that landing gear, especially those back doors there, are gonna come out, but we'll see. That's what primer and sanding sticks are for. So all right, the fuselage is closed. Just test fitting that nose on there, but yeah, I think that's gonna fit nicely. I think that'll do it for this video. So I finished up the fuselage, and I'm prepared for the stand, and got all the parts cleaned up. Now it's just a matter of, and Joe sent me a text with some pictures of his seams, and they came out great. So I gotta start scraping all those seams and get all those right and get everything to look good up there. But I'm satisfied with my progress so far. It's really now just a matter of pulling everything together, masking and painting. I think the hard part is over, hopefully. So until next time, thanks for watching and happy modeling.